The Bunker Project, episode number 3, Podcasting 101. And welcome back to another exciting episode of the Bunker Project. We're here in the Bunker Bar on Robson Street in the Barclay Hotel.
And shockingly enough, we've got 4 guests staring at us, so big nerves for me.
We have a studio audience, a live studio audience, and we'll hopefully be getting some participation in the show a little bit later. And today we're going to talk about Podcasting 101.
Yeah, and that's actually straight from one of the people in the audience. Oh, and speaking of what, we've got some more people coming in. Oh, no, they're not on the show. Too bad. Okay, so, yeah, we're actually quizzing our special guests, and we've decided to do Podcasting 101. And what they're going to do, they're going to fire us questions based on what they see, what we've got set up here. We're going to answer it. So if you're listening to the show, boom, you can set up a show just like this.
So we've got our first question.
My question is, are you using special software in order to do this podcast? And I see you've also got a Mac, so is it different software for Mac and Windows?
Well, I like to handle the Mac side. If you use a Mac, the show is automatically cool. I mean, it's just the way it is. But on the serious side.
The software is Audacity, and some podcasters use, especially as they get more experience, they move up to Audition, which is a $350 software package. And it can do a lot of the things that Audacity can do, and it can do it a little better and a little bit more user-friendly. You don't have to know a lot of the technical aspects of manually leveling your audio and whatnot. But Audacity is free. It's open source software. Anybody can download it and use it for free, and it's actually very easy to use if you're just doing a straight recording. If you want to do post-production and use a software limiter, software gate, and compression, it takes a little bit more technical know-how for that, but it can be done.
Yeah, I would also say because Audacity is open software, if you get into it more, there's all sorts of great plugins that you can there's a whole section for filters and whatever, and you can import new filters. And when I first got into Audacity, that's what I was checking out on the internet. I wanted a special effect. I was echo or something like that. So I'll get an echo filter. There were hundreds of choices. And so I phoned up Andrew. Hey, Andrew, there's too many choices. What should I choose? But tell them about that piece of software that you got that once you finish the show, you run it through.
It's called the Levelator. It's put out by the Conversation Network. It's a great piece of software. All you do is you take your WAV file. So after you've finished your show, you convert the Audacity file to a WAV file. Then you drag over the file and just place it right into the open software, the Levelator, and it automatically processes it. It runs compression, it runs a limiter and a gate, and it filters out the background noise and helps. If you have one person that's talking really loud and while somebody else is talking quietly, it'll even that out.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. It's really nice.
Basically, it does your post-production for you.
Gives you a cleaner sound.
Well, I don't know about cleaner, but definitely it knocks out the background a little bit, and it brings forward the people, the content more than anything. And with an audio file, that's what you want to do, is have the cleanest quality of the sound so people can get to the information of the content, because that's what it's all about.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
And I'm sorry, what was the name of the software you can upgrade to from Audacity?
It's Adobe Audition.
Audition, thanks.
Yeah, and that one is a professional audio suite from Adobe.
Yeah, now I just want to jump in here, being a big Audacity fan. Is there that much difference? I mean, you get higher quality with the sourcing. So if you have lousy mics and a really, really top-end piece of software that'll help you edit it, you're still going to have lousy sound. So you've got to really have the whole suite not the whole suite, but a whole understanding about making a radio show or a podcast. And you want to get great sound. Like when we're speaking, we're not speaking way back here. Like we're really close to the mics. And that way you get a nice punchy sound. And if you don't, no matter how much filtering and special effects you put onto it, it's really not going to make a difference. Same with video. A lot of people say when you're shooting a video, adding a bunch of effects. Well, really, what you should be doing is shooting as clean and as crisp a piece of video as possible. When you go into post-production, then you add your effects. Because if you got the effects, you can't take them out. So really, the same thing with audio.
You can do a lot in post-production, but if you've messed up the audio to begin with, it makes the job a lot harder.
Yeah, it's way more work. Right?
Yeah, way more work, and you don't want to be doing that. You want nice, clean audio from the start. In a situation like this, where we're doing a show with live audience in a bar, where people may be coming in and out of the room, we're going to get some background noise, and that's just part of the ambience of the show.
Yeah, and I like that. I do a podcast where I interview people about business books that they've read, and I do it in coffee shops and in different locations. I found the best location for recording is in a car. It's an awesome sound. I mean, not driving around in the car, which actually I might try, but just as, once you come in your car, and we'll sit in your car and we'll do the interview, and you get a great sound. It's comfortable. You get a nice bit of hard glass in front of you, so a nice reflective sound, but lots of padding, so there's not much echo. So it really sounds like a studio recording. So
it does indeed, and that's a lot of people do interviews in the car for podcasting.
Yeah, it'd be. Well, there is a guy in town now. He's got a really nice setup. I was watching a couple of videos of him. And he's got, these beautiful penthouses. They've got, well, not penthouses, all these condos they've got in Vancouver. And they have these little tiny, small, 1 meter or 2 meter by 2 or 3 meter balconies that are glassed off.
A solarium.
Yeah, he's made that into his studio. And it's, all mic'd up and set up. And it's a great sound and it looks cool. So, and it shoots great. You get the big view.
One more thing about the Levelator, it's a great piece of software, but some people don't like to use it because you're giving up control. And some people really like to have full control over what they're doing with their audio. They might not want to limit out certain sounds, or they might not want to apply a gate, and they might just want to add some compression. So it is kind of an all-in-one, you just throw it in there and see what comes out kind of process.
Yeah. So also the other thing to consider is when you're recording, are you going to record stereo or mono? That's a big question, because one of two things. I personally like doing it in stereo because you got the interviewer on the left and then you got the answer on the right. But when you're exporting it and putting it on the internet, there's a bandwidth issue. And if you have a full-on stereo maximum quality, you can have an 8-minute show that's 15 megabytes. Or you can make it mono and a little less quality. You can go down to 3 or 4 megabytes. And that's huge if you're paying a fee per megabyte for download. So that actually is a nice vignette.
Well, for stereo podcast, if you're like playing music in your podcast, you want it in stereo, obviously. For voice podcast, it's not important unless you're doing what Bob is doing with his business book podcast, is panning the audio left and right, so that it sounds like people are in front of you on the left and the right side, kind of like here in the middle, which is a great way of doing it. The only downside to that is a lot of people listen to podcasts with a stereo headset in the left or right ear. And I do that sometimes when I'm going to sleep. I'll just put it in one ear. And then if you've got it completely panned, you're not going to be able to listen to it because the other ear is going to be completely silent. Or if it's slightly panned, then one person is going to sound significantly quieter than the other person. And I actually had that with your podcast. I said, hey, Greg on that was a great interview, but Greg, he was really talking quietly. And then he said, yeah, he was kind of soft-spoken. And then after that, I realized that when he mentioned that that's how he recorded his podcast, I realized that was it. So, when I'm listening to that podcast, I'll just put both in the ear.
Yeah. So let's go to the next stage. Is what you've recorded, you've edited it, you're really happy. Oh, actually, before we get into, we're talking about distribution next. Let's talk about what is editing and what are you going to look for when you're editing. There's a big difference in podcast styles where some people like to just record everything, and whatever happens in the background or noise or ums and ahs and long pauses, they just keep it all in. And in some cases, it makes it very, very difficult to actually hear what the person is saying. And all the way to the other spectrum where somebody edits it like crazy and takes all the ums and ahs and the spaces and cleans it up And my whole theory is that the cleaner you make it, the more the mistakes stand out. So when I record, I take out pops, and people go, that's a terrible sound. But you don't know it when you're talking, but you listen to it in audio, and it just like, oh my God, it jumps right out. So bang, I chop that right out. And ums and ahs, and and some people, it's just in every language you've got these words that you throw in subliminally that gives your brain a chance to think. In Japan, it's antana. So if somebody's talking Japanese, da 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 da, antana, they're just going ah. So it's a psychological thing where you're creating basically downtime with your mouth, so your brain has a chance to catch up. So when you listen to professional people on the radio, they're very, very conscious of ums and ahs and clicks and things like that. And I notice that when I'm speaking or interviewing people that are professional speakers, I have a really hard time editing it down. I've interviewed some people for 30, 40 minutes and edited down to 8 minutes. So out of 30 or 40 minutes of continuous speaking and back and forth, there's actually only 8 minutes of content. And the rest is babble. And then I just interviewed Shane Gibson, who's a very, very very good speaker, and he's just written a book on social media and stuff like that. He's an incredible speaker. And we sat down for 39 minutes, and I edited down to 37 minutes. And that was it. That's because there was so much great content. So I was like, oh man, 37 minutes. I'm usually 8 minutes, so I've had to chop it up into 3 shows.
So as a podcaster, though, the key difference between doing it live to hard drive, which is no editing, and extensive editing, it all comes down to time. Because to do a heavily edited podcast, you're going to be spending a lot of time in front of your computer in post-production. And there's the unpolished approach, which is you just do it as if it's a live show, and you just take out anything that stands out badly, like the microphone gets bumped and there's a big boom.
It's kind of like our show. Oh, I'm bumping the mic.
Exactly. So, something like that you could cut out because it's just going to be annoying to the listener. But in terms of keeping it as if it was a live show and as true to that format as possible, you record the show and then you just, take out whatever you need to take out and you just upload it and you're done.
Yep. Now, okay.
I do another show, Health Empowerment News with Kraft Woodruff, a natural health show.
That's pretty wild.
And that one, I heavily edit it, and it turns out, sounds pretty good, but it takes several hours to do a 1 hour show.
Well, it's also because of your guest too. I mean, he gets pretty frothy. It's health empowerment, and if you ask the right question, he can get pretty fired up.
Oh, he gets very fired up, and that's what makes it entertaining. But but he also does a lot. He also and ah throughout the whole thing, and so I really have to whenever he's thinking, just like you said, it's right.
Yeah.
So we cut that out.
So now we recorded the show, we've edited the show, and now we want to upload or publish it. So what's the best way to publish it? And this is a big question I had, is like, okay, so I'm just going to slap it on my website and host it myself. And phone up Andrew, and I said, well, yes, but highly iffy, because the way it works on the internet for bandwidth, if you have a show, a 15 megabyte show or 8 megabyte show, and you've got 30 of them, that's 30 times 8 megabytes, then suddenly your show goes viral or people catch on to your show. They don't just listen to one show, they listen to all your shows. And suddenly you get a call from your hosting company. Says, oh, by the way, you owe us $700 for what? What for?
So there's a difference between unlimited storage and unlimited bandwidth. So if you have unlimited storage on your hosting account, that doesn't mean that. Well, it does mean that you can store unlimited audio files for your podcast. But then, like Bob says, your podcast gets popular, and you're in trouble, because 10,000 people download all 30 podcasts times 30 megabytes. It's going to add up. And what if you had 100 shows or 200 shows? So
what do you do?
So the answer to that is there's 2 ways of doing it. You can go to a self-hosted platform like Podomatic or My Podcast World. There's a dozen of them, and
I'm just going to get Andrew he's popping his peas here, so I'm just going to give him just okay. Here's a tip. If you talk directly into a mic like this and pop your piece, it doesn't sound so great. So that's why I've got the mic on the side. I'm talking across my mic.
And actually, this microphone is the. I just got this actually, so I'm new to this microphone. It's the Heil Classic rock and roll microphone. I took the rock and roll thing off because then I wouldn't be able to see anybody talking over the mic. But my girlfriend, she got this for me for my birthday a couple of weeks ago. So this is actually the first time I'm using it, and it's a great mic. It's a large diaphragm dynamic mic, and
yeah, that's why you sound so bassy and I sound so wimpy. Well, it could be my voice too.
Yeah, well, my voice is already a little bit bassy to begin with, so it's really.
Yeah, I should have the mic. Oh well, I'll talk to my wife. Honey, I know what I need for Christmas.
Yeah, you'll get the Heil PR40, and then I'll have mic envy after that.
Mic envy.
Anyways, so back to the hosting. You can have a self-host, you can join one of these podcast networks, and you can put your podcast up for free, unlimited storage, unlimited bandwidth. And there's also some SEO benefits to doing that too, because you're joining a network with hundreds of shows, and then your show will gain listeners just by osmosis, just by being there. The downside is that you don't control your RSS feed. So what happens if they go out of business? Well, you just lost all your listeners. So I recommend always to people starting a podcast, own your own RSS feed. So how do you do that?
Okay, now I just want to jump in here. What the hell is an RSS? Does anybody in our studio audience know what RSS is? Real Simple Syndication. And it's just a way, I use Net News Lite, and it's a way to go to a website. If you get an RSS feed, what it does, instead of you having to visit that website, this program will go and it'll check all the news stories that are on that website and download them onto the whatever software you're using.
You can use Google Reader.
Yeah, Google Reader or there's a bunch of them. But anyways, you don't actually never have to visit that site again. You can just see all the new news stories that are there, and you usually get the title and a quick synopsis, the first paragraph, or whatever they consider the synopsis.
Without the web formatting, everyone's site looks the same.
It's very quick. So basically, you're choosing based on content, not on graphic or visual stimulus, which is, a lot of people spend all this money on making a beautiful website, and the most popular part is through the RSS feed. Usually people that have an RSS feed, they're going to it every single day. Like I have an RSS feed for Dig, and every 4 or 5 hours I'm getting 40 new stories. It's amazing. Oh, is this a new guest? Come on in.
It looks like...
he's got a Guinness. Styling.
Honda just walked in. Hey,
He's
Ian.
our new sponsor.
How you doing, guys?
All right.
So moving on to the second option, and that is to host it yourself. And then you go to a service like libsyn.com, which is Liberated Syndication, it stands for. Libsyn. Libsyn. And what that is it's a podcasting hosting service, and they offer unlimited storage. They offer unlimited bandwidth. Yeah. Limited storage based on how much you pay per month. So a basic plan is $5 a month, and you get, I believe it's 50 megabytes a month.
Yeah, you get 50 megabytes. That's the one I've got, and which is tough for me because my shows are sometimes 15, 17 megabytes, and I'll get this, near the end of the month, I'll get this obnoxious one and say, sorry, maxed out. And that's why I had to make the decision with the 37-minute piece, because it came in at 37 megabytes. So I figured I want to stretch it into 3 shows, at least get a 3/4 of a month out of that one interview. And that only costs $5. That's a really good deal. And the way it works is you upload up to 50 megabytes, and then at the end of the month, they archive it. They don't archive it in the sense that you lose it. They just put it into a server that has designed to have slightly less bandwidth. It's
not a high demand server, because they know that in general, a podcaster's show is the newest episode is going to have the highest demand, because you've got your audience built up, and when the new episode comes out, everybody's going to pull it. When you get new listeners, they might listen to all your archive shows, but you're not going to have as much of a demand for all at once for episode number 2 of a podcast that has 500 episodes.
Yeah, no, that's true. So basically, you got it uploaded. You have a choice of them actually having a blog. So as part of the $5, you can have a pretty simple blog, so people can go to that particular space. Or then you can take the link to the file once you've uploaded it and use that link for your podcast page. Now, I have a WordPress page for my book interviews, and I just use that link. Oh, looks like we got another guest. It's like a amazing full house. We've gone from nobody to like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 anymore, and it'll be many. Because I've only got one. So, anyways, then I got basically a little strip of information, which is the actual location on their servers, and I put that into an audio player. So when you go to my website, my WordPress website, it'll say this book, and it'll have a little audio player that when I click on that audio player, it's actually streaming from their server. So it's not affecting my server, and that's what I'm paying my $5 for. So if suddenly I get, let's say, 20,000 people in 1 month discover the show and go, whoa, we want to get into this, it spikes on their end, not on my end. So GoDaddy doesn't send me a nasty message and say, hey, dear Bob, you're screwed.
Well, basically what usually happens is they just cut off your account before it gets to that point.
Well, okay, that's a
You
less
lose the
than subtle
listeners.
way of saying, so, I guess I was screwed.
And then there's another optional fee for $2 extra on top of the $5 on the basic plan. You get stats. And that's if you care, if you want to see who's listening. And on the new Libsyn 3 that they've migrated everybody over to, it's an upgraded service that you can get detailed stats on where your listeners are. So you can find out if they're listening. And I just saw that the Bunker Project has 2 listeners in Australia.
Yeah, so I mean,
So hello, our Aussie friends who are listening right now.
Hello. Oh, by the way, I'm still drinking my black beer. I haven't mentioned it for the whole show. This is my big thing. I'm totally into this beer. And just to let you know, I've been going to bars all over Vancouver. Nobody's got this damn beer. It's driving me nuts. I went to this Belgian bar. I said, yeah, you got any black beer? And I got the dirtiest look. No, we just have Belgian beer here. Oh, man. So, yeah, hats off to my black beer. And they're not even a sponsor yet.
They will be.
Yeah. Even if
least-
they don't want to be, they're going to become a sponsor. So, getting back to Podcasting 101. So, we've recorded a show. Fascinating content, well recorded, no background noise, sounds great. We've filtered the hell out of it. We've basically edited it to make everybody sound great. We've uploaded onto the Libsyn because that's a cool solution. It's only cost me $5. And then, boom, I whipped up a quick WordPress website. I've got it up there. Now what do we do?
Well, once the enclosure is on the website and the audio player is there, actually, let's back up a step. Before we actually load up the MP3 into Libsyn, what we want to do is we want to tag the file. So we want to put the name of the file, and we want to put the description, and you want to put your website there. So when people are listening on their iPod, they'll see the website so that they can find the other episodes or information about.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask the question. What is a tag? And that's when you've got a WordPress site or you've got you're paying people a bunch of money to do what's not RSS? What's it called when they promote your website? Everybody
SEO.
knows. Yeah, SEO. Thank you. So SEO. That's what they're doing. They're putting tags on there, and so tags for this would be bunker, dark bar,
No.
cool conversation.
This is a tag of the MP3 file. So when people are listening to the show on their iPod or MP3 player, they see the information you want them to see. So they'll see the name of the show, they'll see the website, they'll see the episode title, because there's nothing worse than somebody who doesn't tag their MP3 player and you don't know what show you're on, and you're like, you unsubscribe basically because you've got 20 shows on there and you don't know which episode you're on and whether you've listened to it before.
So this
it's
is
a real-
iTunes.
This is the actual MP3 file. You can use a program called, there's a number of programs, but you can use MP3 tag.
Yeah.
Funny enough.
But what's the one that you use all the time?
I use MP3 tag.
Well, what's the one, the burn,
FeedBurner.
FeedBurner?
is totally different. And that is, we'll get into that in a second. So MP3 tag, you put the album art on your MP3 file. So when it's playing, you see your album art, because you don't want just the generic iTunes logo on your podcast. When people are listening to it, you want them to see your logo and then the author name. So right now, if you're listening to this and you look at your iPod right now, you'll see the author, Andrew McGivern and Bob Garlick, right? Why wouldn't you put that in? And so you tag the MP3. Then you upload it into Libsyn. Then you put it onto your website. That little strip of information you were talking about you get from Libsyn, it's called an enclosure file. You put that enclosure on the website, and if you're using a blog, it'll automatically create an RSS feed. If you're using another website, you have to manually encode the RSS feed or use a widget to do that. And what you do after that is you want to put your show on iTunes, and you register it by going to iTunes podcast. You go to the iTunes store, you go to podcasts, and then on the right hand side in the middle of the page, it'll say submit a podcast, and that's when you put your feed. Now back to what you said with FeedBurner.
Yeah.
You don't want to use the feed from your blog site, which is would be, in this case, it would be the site we're using is uncensoredsocialunderground.com.
Yeah.
And the feed would be just /feed, because WordPress will automatically associate a feed with that. You want to go to feedburner.com, and it's owned by Google now, and you put the source feed, which is in this case uncensoredsocialunderground.com/feed, and you click burn a new feed, and then you choose the name. So our feed is feeds.feedburner.com/Bunker Project. Now, why would we do this? 2 reasons. What happens if we lose the domain, if we forget to renew it and somebody else takes it? Well, we lost our feed, and we have 100,000 listeners. We lost all of them. We have to now start a new feed and then try and convince everybody to resubscribe. It's a lot harder to do. And plus, you don't actually know who necessarily, unless you built a community, which will be another episode. But you don't necessarily know who all your listeners are. You just know they're listening. Oh,
okay. And I just want to jump in here too. Is just because you've made a podcast doesn't mean you shouldn't promote it in many other mediums. So for us, we've got a Facebook, we've got the LinkedIn, we've got Twitter, we've got all sorts of ways that even if we did have a meltdown like what Anne was talking about, we lost that particular section, like the podcast part, people could find us again quickly, right? We would just put a Twitter out or on the Facebook. Oh, guess what? Our server guys just got busted, and boom, it got taken, and the FBI's taking all the files, and so we've got to do something. But boom, go here now, and you're covered. So that's
the bottom line. Is you want to keep in touch with because you're basically, with podcasting, you're building a community of listeners. You're building a following of people who, if you enjoy the show, you'll keep listening. With FeedBurner, if you do lose your source feed, you just create a new one and start putting your new files onto that blog site, and then log into feedburner.com, change the source feed, and it automatically,
nobody would notice.
If nothing happened.
Yeah.
Nobody would notice.
Yeah,
you can reestablish your feed through it.
Absolutely, basically, yeah. And if you do it quickly enough, nobody will really notice. They'll go, oh yeah.
No interruption of service whatsoever.
Yeah. And then that's the thing with iTunes, is once you get people subscribing through something like iTunes, when they plug in their iPod, it downloads automatically. If it doesn't download that 1 week, they don't even notice. So, hang on, where's my favorite show? Don't notice. Boom. The next time it's up, it's ready to go.
It's on demand. So with iTunes, just like Bob says, you plug in your iPod or your iPhone. You don't need iTunes to listen to podcasts. You can listen to them with Media Monkey or any other podcatching software. iTunes just happens to be the most popular. And I disagree a little bit with what Bob just said.
Because, here we go with the fisticuffs.
Because if you have a regular weekly show, people will fit it into their schedule. And if you're putting it out on, say, every Monday at midnight, so people are used to, on their commute on Tuesday mornings, listening to the Bunker Project or Business Book Talk, and then it's not there on Tuesday morning, they might find another show that's going to be there every Tuesday morning to fit into their life. So. Yeah. Some people, aren't going to care. They're just going to get it whenever they get it and listen whenever they have it. But there's other people that are very much in a routine. And people, by nature like the routines. So it's better to give them, the content on a regular basis.
Yeah, I would say consistency is king on this case. If you got a show and you do 30 podcasts and then people get used to listening to you and then you decide, I'm going to flake off, I'm not getting enough comments, so I'm not going to do anything for like 3 months. Number one, you're going to disappoint a bunch of people, and yeah, they are going to go out. I think if you miss 1 or 2 shows and then you're back, oh, great, he's back. I love this guy, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to listen to his show. I think if you have a lot of, going back to my side of the argument about having like a Facebook account and Twitter and stuff like that, you can just inform your audience, hey, you know what? I'm going to Europe for a couple of weeks. I'm going to go party there, and then I'm going to come back, and then I'm going to continue my podcast, so stay tuned. Then that's fine. You can communicate to your audience that what's happening. And because of social media, it is a social thing. So you are allowed to do stuff outside of traditional media, right? If you're CNN, you got to be there every night, 9 o'clock to 9:15. That's your show. If you blow it, whoa, people get fired. I mean, if we do this podcast and then, I'm sick one week and then Andrew can't make or whatever, and we blow a show, well, we blow a show. No big deal. It's a social thing. So unless, I think a lot of people take it way too serious too. They get on this high horse and, I have to be there and, all uptight, and they make it like this incredibly intense job experience. Say, hey, come on, this is like something you're doing for the fun of it, to share knowledge with people and to communicate with people and build a community. That's what social marketing is all about and social media is all about.
And I think we should do a whole show down the road.
You're on.
Based on building a community. But the next
I'll have to talk to management, though.
The next thing is, because we're running out of time.
What's our time? We got like 33 minutes. That's a show. By the way, this week we've cut it down to 30 minutes. Everybody is like, what? I've only had 1 beer. But we will be back.
Before we do, though, because I'm sure somebody's thinking, how much does it cost to get into podcasting equipment-wise?
Millions of dollars, I hear.
And $30, $40 is the bare minimum. Because you need to have a microphone, and you can go to Future Shop or any electronics store and get just a USB microphone. Plug it into your computer, as long as it's got a headset and a mic, built in. No problem. You can start podcasting on a budget. It's not going to sound very good. It'll sound good enough. And then as you go, you can add the mixing board, add the better microphones, and
get your wife to buy a mic,
the USB interface, and all that. And then that allows you to take phone calls and take Skype calls and do a mix minus, and we'll talk about all that stuff in a future episode as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But bare minimum, you just need assuming you already have a computer, you can get the software like we mentioned, Audacity, for free. You got
to get a Mac if it's a cool show. PC if it's a business show. If it's a business show, it has to be PC.
How uncool am I? I'm very uncool because I'm using a Mac, but it's running Windows. So.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in
I
here.
look cool, but on the inside, I'm really not.
Hey, whatever works for you, dude. I'm just going to jump here for a quick second here. Actually, when I record my shows, I use a little digital recorder because I'm roaming all over the place, so I do the recording that way. But my problem is I have to boot my Mac into a PC mode. I download the file onto the PC, and then I put it into iTunes, and I use the iTunes MP3 conversion from WAV to MP3 to make an MP3, and then I have to.
We didn't mention that.
Yeah, exactly. Because
actually the encoder that you can get for Audacity is called the lame encoder, and it's
lame.
A good name because it actually is lame.
It's really lame.
And it's good for stereo. It's good for music, but it's not good for voice.
Yeah, very flat.
And I can't remember the name of the encoder it's the Fraunhofer or something like that.
Well, there's all sorts for PCs, but there's nothing really for Mac.
But in iTunes, it's got a great MP3 encoder.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
so you just go to advanced and create MP3 version. And it just takes a few minutes, and if that, and it's done, and then you've got your file. You tag it, upload it to Libsyn, and away you go. Yeah,
so that's what I do. I mean, it's a real pain, but And then I'm back to the Mac, and I'm cool again. So then I do my editing with Audacity.
So I think we've gone over time, so that wraps it up for this show, and we'll be back again in reality, we're going to be back in like
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Hey, and thanks to our awesome studio audience for the great background noise.
But for the podcast, we'll be back again in 1 week.
Yeah, exactly.
See you next week.
All right, bye.
If you enjoyed the show, please comment on our Facebook page, our meetup.com page, and on iTunes. Each 5-star rating helps increase the distribution of this show, and we'd certainly appreciate hearing from you. If you have any questions or comments or would like to participate in the show and can't make the meetup group, call us at our voicemail feedback line at 1-877-636-1474. Leave a message and we'll get your question, comment, or feedback into the show.